and welcome back to Public Art 101. This is session number 6, and today we're talking about engaging the community in the public art process. This is my absolute favorite topic, so let's have a little fun with this. So in more and more communities these days, there's an increased demand for community engagement in the public art process, which, of course, it's art in the public realm. We want to have the community engaged and invested and have a sense of ownership over the artwork itself. But how do you do community engagement effectively? That's a really good question. Most artists are trained in how to engage community effectively. It's a skill that's required, that's learned over time. But when you go to art school, you're taught to work in a studio to perfect your own practice kind of in solitude and to really refine your own voice. And so integrating community into your art practice in a way that's truly reflective of your own work is a unique skill. In this session, we're going to talk a little bit more about why you would want to commit to doing a community engagement process. We're going to talk about what is and what isn't considered engagement. We're going to talk about different types of engagement and ways to involve the community in the public art process. We're going to talk about how to make engagement a part of the actual art practice itself. And then we're going to talk a bit about budgeting for engagement. So community engagement. Like I said, not all artists are trained in how to do engagement effectively. When you're planning your project, you need to understand your expectations for engagement up front so that you can find an artist who is suitable to meet those needs. And always remember that doing community engagement is an additional task on top of the artwork, and so it requires additional funds to support the artist in doing that work. So why would we do engagement? It's a lot of extra work, some extra money involved. What's the point of engaging the community in your public art project? When we do community engagement effectively, the community is engaged in every aspect of the project and really feels as though they've influenced the outcome and intention of the artwork itself.
A lot of the artwork I make has a story to them. It's important to share your culture, your story, or a message, or to inspire people. I think that's what public art. The idea is that's what I love about it.
When the community is a part of this process, they feel like they have a sense of connection and ownership over the final artwork.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing that I got this chance because public art, after all, is like I said it earlier. It gives for every artist a chance to think something different in order to think out of the box, and to try something new, and which is really wonderful because when you get feedback from others or in the process of making this artwork or to do public engagement, so they put every of their wishes on those pieces, and I study what they feel, what they want. So I put those wishes or needs in that public art piece, and at the end, when they see the art pieces, they feel some sort of ownership, belonging to the process. So that is something fascinating. Very it makes everybody happy. So I wish every artist to have such opportunity once in a while.
By engaging the community, you can make your project much more site specific and connected to that community itself. So that artwork could never exist anywhere else. It really lives in that community in its own way.
There was some beautiful moments with the land exploration where I got to observe people really seeing things for the first time and saying, "Oh, I've walked by that all the time and I never really noticed these things about it, or I never really noticed that it was there even." And so I feel like that in itself was quite successful. They were learning new things about the areas that they spent time in. So many of these community members were people that had walked those areas before, but they're seeing it through a different lens, and so I feel like that was a success.
Community engaged artwork can target specific needs or issues in the community, actually drawing in and engaging community members who maybe aren't always connected to the community in a full way. Community engagement can help to celebrate those key dates and moments in a community's history. And really, in the end, people then will see themselves reflected in the final artwork and feel like they have a sense of belonging and connection.
I know the one that I did in Inglewood, I feel like is a kind of fun mirror for people, where I feel like a lot of straight folks will look at that and be like, look at that woman taking charge of her man. Whereas like queer folks, I feel like see it and immediately recognize like a sapphic couple. And it's kind of funny that I didn't even have that. I had the like obvious gender swap very much in mind when I made the work, but it was until after when other people pointed out the like queerness of it that like synced up with like my own journey of like discovering my own queerness along that path. It was something that I didn't even recognize, but was very in the work, even before I was like recognizing that in myself.
Community engagement can happen throughout your entire project process in a variety of different ways. And that way you can involve many different community members who bring different skills to the project in a way that's comfortable for them and contributing to the project in their own way. One of the first ways you can do that is to involve community members in your project team. So right at the very beginning, when you're planning your project and you're starting to think about the idea and create those goals that you're setting out for your project as a whole, having community members on your project team will really help you to ensure that that community perspective is included in the planning and that people feel connected to the project right from the very beginning. Community members should always be included in the research and development phase, and sometimes that happens even before an artist is hired. Sometimes the project team or even the organization that has been doing the project already has feedback and research and ideas from the community, and that's what's informed the idea for the need for a project in the first place. And that's great. That means that the project is responding to the community need. Sometimes it's connected to a specific date or time or memorial part of history. And so all of that research, all of that history of the community is part of what informs the project in the first place. What we're looking for when we do a public art project engagement is really active community engagement as a part of the art process itself. So that's a little bit more programming specific. Often it's around a theme or an idea or an issue. It's a way of the artists working with the public that's specific to the outcome they're trying to get to in their artwork. It's a very concept-specific engagement. That's more of what we're going to talk about today. But of course, when the project is done, you also still want to celebrate the project, draw the community in to inform them about what's happened, share those stories through your networks, through social media, through your newsletters. Make sure that you engage the community effectively in communicating with them about what you've done. And of course, and incredibly importantly, is including truth and reconciliation protocols as a part of your engagement process. So this ensures that your engagement is actually including all of our diverse populations that are historically excluded from these processes. Incorporating truth and reconciliation protocols means that we're engaging our Indigenous community in every phase of a project, that there's Indigenous representation on your project team, that we seek out inclusion in all aspects of the project, and that we're advised by elders and knowledge keepers throughout, ensuring that all of our considerations are also inclusive to the Indigenous community.
Which communities are you going to work with? You should know that. You should know who speaks on behalf of those communities. You should know the difference between an elder, a ceremonialist, a knowledge keeper. There are differences. Sure, they connect, and sometimes we call them all elders, but really there are differences. And offer tobacco, that's pretty common for all the Plains nations, which, Treaty 7 is, and Treaty 6, Treaty 4, Treaty 8, all those ones. And yeah, I mean, intention, if your intention is always good, and you know how to research, you'll find the people you're looking for. And yeah, ask people like myself. If I don't know, I'll send you in the right direction. And there are other, public artists and arts professionals, arts and culture professionals like myself that can help you out in that regard. It's better to ask dumb questions than to proceed without knowing where you're supposed to go next. And then pretending like you do is usually when you mess up.
So many of those steps of engagement are ways of connecting to the community, sharing information, making sure they're a part of the process, that they're informed and shared with. But what we're talking about here today, very specifically, is how to engage the community in the actual public art process and the development of the artwork itself. So, in that case, when we start to get specific to public art, there are many things that are not considered engagement as a part of the public art process. So, for instance, research. While research is an important part of the overall project planning and can be a very engaging process, when an artist comes in and does their background research for their project in the concept development, that's just a starting point. That's not the acted type of engagement that we're looking for when we're developing a public art project. That's just research. A lot of artists create work that is interactive. So once it goes into the ground, it's installed, it's something that the public can play with and connect with and becomes a part of the community in that way, which is great. We really want artworks that create that sense of play. However, interactivity is something that happens after the artwork is installed. So it means that the artist created the design and the idea all by themselves on their own, and it becomes a playful thing after the fact. With true community engagement, if we're actually looking for that sense of connection and ownership over the artwork, where the public actually feels that they had a vested interest and that they were listened to, heard, and influenced the outcome of the art project itself, then interactivity is not actually community engagement. So it's great, do it, but you also want engagement to support the process along the way. Volunteer labor is not engagement. You'd be surprised how often this happens. We get artists who believe that by inviting the public to, say, help them paint a wall, maybe they sketch it out and people add components or something like that. Although it can be fun and interactive, it's not an engaging way of drawing people into the process. Now, if you're doing that as a mentorship opportunity or engagement with youth, perhaps as a way of skill sharing, then perhaps we can justify that as engagement. But you have to be really, really careful. If you're inviting the public to join you, it needs to be a meaningful contribution to the art project as whole, not simply you getting some free labor. Communications is a way of engaging the public. It informs them about your process and what's happening with your project, which is great. But communications, again, when we're dealing with a meaningful interaction around the actual development of an artwork itself, isn't what we're looking for. Communications is a way of sharing a story. What we're looking for is drawing people in so they actually are the story themselves. They're the ones who are assisting in the creation and development of the idea itself.
It's a good opportunity to open up, to learn something new, and also to ask oneself or themselves if they are willing to take advice of or ideas of other people into their works. Just to adapt that flexibility at some point. I think from that point of view, I would say don't fear, just dare to do whatever project it is. Because it will be fun at the end of the day. It will be very unique experience. I think asking for help, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing because we're human, we need that. It's interactive. It's one of the common interactive element in our day-to-day life activities. So asking help doesn't mean that you are, know-howless. No, you don't have the know-how or the skill set to achieve that. But you need some direction, sometimes enlightenment. It's not bad. So dare to ask. It will pay off. I definitely see that as a positive action.
There are lots of different ways to engage, however. So community arts is a really popular way of engaging people. It's one of the things that we talk about often with youth or community groups where you have unskilled artists who work under the guidance or tutelage of an artist, and the artist takes all of their contributions and compiles them and puts them together in a way that then makes it look beautiful. Community arts sometimes get a bad rap. People tend to think of them as not professional art practices. I really disagree with that. It takes a lot of skill to be able to work with the public in that way, and then to be able to see how they contribute in perhaps a less skilled artistic way, but then to take all of that and put it together into an art project that actually looks beautiful and meaningful in the end, where everyone can literally walk up to it and see their own handprint, their own fingerprint, their own contribution that they literally made themselves put into that final artwork. There's a really beautiful piece here in Calgary, up in Martindale, where he did that really beautifully. So he actually went into the public, had them draw these elements that they would contribute to the river as offerings to the river. And he took every single one of the drawings that was given to him during his community workshops. He integrated them into the overall design, and it became this really beautiful steel cutout that was overlaid over some light and ceramics at the Martindale LRT station. You should go see it sometime. Community cultural development is another meaningful way of working with more public and kind of perhaps unskilled artist practice, but that you then draw into a meaningful project. Often community cultural development is done with a little bit more of an intention in mind. So it's usually around a need or an issue within a community that project specifically addresses in some way that can draw people together. So for instance, you see a lot of community cultural development projects that perhaps are intergenerational projects where we bring elderly folks together with youth and they develop something together that results in an art project. A lot of times, if we want to address a diverse population within a community that isn't always engaged within the rest of the community, maybe we can design a project that supports bringing people together in that way. We did a beautiful birdhouse project that was literally to address the fact that communities didn't like squirrels and wanted more birds in their community. So community cultural development is usually designed as a way to address a specific issue in a really positive and beautiful way that involves the public in the creation of an artwork together to create that sense of connectivity in their community. An extension of community cultural development is what's now known as social practice, or sometimes art for social change. It's got a little bit of moving terminology at this point in time. Social practice stems from the artist, usually with an issue or concern that they really want to look at within the community and examine more deeply through their artistic lens. They then invite the public in, who maybe have an interest or a significant investment in that specific issue. And they create something together or use the research, information, the words, whatever they get from the community to help them create that final product. Usually at that point, the final product goes back to the artist, and the artist themselves designs the final artwork based on all this interaction that they got from the community. So it is a more artist-driven approach to a politicized need or issue within the community. Activism is also a way of engaging the community. I have a colleague who uses the word artivism. Thank you, Sharon Stevens, for that. It's a way of actually really actively getting word and knowledge out about a specific political issue using the arts.
To me, it's always been important to use art and activism together so that the messages can get out in a more succinct way, but also maybe a more playful way and a more human way. Sometimes activists are often described as pretty grim and determined. I mean, the world is a grim and determined place to be surviving in. So, but why try to counter that with some art? Just different ways of being in the world. Well, as activists, we've been doing gathering on the streets in active and beautiful and imaginative ways for decades. It used to be called agitprop, probably still is, but it was short for agitating props or agitating the public. So it would be like giant puppets on the street or banners or music or all kinds of ways of getting a message out. And Canada, we're a pretty We're a country that doesn't have a lot of strife and a lot of issues, but around the world, Central and South America, the term artivism was coined. So that's a lot of what I also relate to is art and activism together. And, Central and South America, murals are really important, and ways of getting messages out is also really important because sometimes we don't own that, the access to the medium.
And so there are many activists who use art as a way to share their message with the world. Activism, artivism, it's a way to engage the community. And of course, celebration and memorial. So bringing people together to celebrate significant dates, times, anniversaries, places within their community, to memorialize those with an artwork that is meaningful to the community as a whole, and to have people participate in the development of that project is a really meaningful way to engage community. So you have a project, you know you want to engage the community. As an artist, you have an idea of the direction that you want to go with engaging the community. The next real question is, how can you tailor your engagement process to augment your own artistic voice, not take away from this? This is really tricky. So again, as an artist, you're often trained to hone your voice kind of in private. The minute you start to invite other feedback, other stories, other interests into your journey, it can be distracting. And often out of respect or a desire to ensure that the community is engaged meaningfully, which is great, often that means that you get pulled away from your own vision as an artist by trying to meet the needs of the community. So the trick here, and it's subtle, the trick is how do you engage the community, collect all of that feedback, meaningfully utilize those stories to inform how you do the artwork, but then do it in your voice in a way that truly reflects your own artistic practice in a beautiful way. Another trick, making sure that when you work with the public, that you're not appropriating their stories, their voices, or the feedback they provide you. This is also incredibly important. So if you're going to work with the public, you want to ensure that any contribution they make is attributed to them and also honored significantly for its contribution. You're not taking their ideas from them. You're working with them to create a product together. Engagement skills are learned through practice. So just like anything, you need to have an idea, you need to get out there and do it. So it's easy to start small. Find ways to involve community. Maybe it's just first through a survey. Maybe it's through conversations. Maybe it's through one or two people that you integrate into a practice. Start small. See how you can start to integrate feedback, integrate stories, integrate community connection into your work, and then start to grow it from there.
Yeah, so the Inglewood project came about through like layers of community engagement that I was able to partner with the Inglewood Community Association, who has like 1,600 emails that we were able to send out a survey that I built. And I went back and forth with another artist on like what would be important to include in the survey. It became like this 10-point little touch point. And from that, we were asking, generally, what do people want to see in art in Inglewood? What does this neighborhood mean to you? What are your favorite activities here? What is some of the things that make this neighborhood really unique amongst neighborhoods in Calgary? And we also asked specifically about the two locations that we were going to be painting and got specific responses to what people would want to see at those locations. It became that the location by the Y became very focused on like nature and the bird sanctuary and Harvey's Passage and biking and activities and beers with friends and a lot of the like modern and fresh and new sort of contemporary takes on what makes Inglewood special. And for the location by the Petoria School, there was an overwhelming response that people wanted to see indigeneity and Indigenous culture represented.
Because engagement can take so many forms and there's so many different ways of drawing people in as a part of your process, really what you're looking for as an artist is to find a way to engage community that expands your own process rather than takes away from it. Really make it a part of your practice. Make it something that you do that's unique to the way that you work, that draws people in and connects them to your artwork. And remember, every time you draw them in, you want to ensure that their word is reflected accurately. It's not appropriative, but that it's expanding your artwork and really allowing you to find your own voice, your own way of working through the stories and information that you receive from the community. Bring it back to yourself in your own practice. So remember, community engagement, even if it's a part of your process and it's something that you've incorporated in, it's one element of your practice and it's an additional skill set and an additional line item in your budget, right? So artists, if you're being asked to do engagement, you need to accurately reflect in your quotes, in your concept development, in your budgeting, how much that's going to cost in order to do that. And communities, if you're expecting community engagement, make sure you remember that you're going to have to pay for it.
We talk about engagement a lot, but you have to decide whether it's going to be a community-driven project or an artist-driven project with some community input into it. And I really wanted the model of it being an artist-driven project. I didn't want to bring in an artist and make them feel like they had to compromise very much.
So we've talked about our artist resource guides, and they are linked on the main page. There's some really wonderful opportunities there for you to go in and look at some of the work that artists have created about this process. But I wanted to highlight for you the community engagement pages by AJ Loudon. So AJ has done some really excellent work with community around graffiti. He does a lot of work with youth and youth at risk and developing murals kind of collaboratively with the youth that he works with. AJ has a beautiful section in his resource guide about how to do community engagement. And he really starts with the question about who does this art serve? What a lovely way to look at it. So really your question when you're looking at your art in the public realm, when it's something that the public gets to experience, the question is, who is going to be seeing that art every day? Who's going to be experiencing it? Who's going to be walking by it? Who is it for? And how can the art effectively serve the public that it's contributing to? What a lovely way to look at engagement. AJ also talks about many different ways that you can consider doing engagement as a part of your artistic process. So maybe his arts ideas can give you some. He talks about workshops. He talks about meetings, surveys, mentorship, presentations and Q&A opportunities, as well as embedding in the community. So actually just the artist being present in order to witness the community that they're serving through their art. He has some examples of projects that he's done where you can actually see how we engage the community. And this is a wonderful way of showcasing the process. So here's where that communications and documentation piece becomes really important. When a final artwork is installed and it engaged the community effectively throughout, it has all those pieces of the community in it. As it starts to live and exist in the community over a period of time, people might forget or not know how the community was involved in that final outcome. So sharing the story of the process of the making of the art is a great way to keep the community connected to that artwork over time. So that story needs to live somewhere as a part of the final artwork. Maybe it lives on your website. Maybe it's addressed through annual revisits of the artwork in some way. There are many ways that you can do it, but the idea is to remember that the artwork is this living entity within the community, that the contributions of the public should be honored and shared so that people know that everyone was a part of it when it first began. So if you haven't done a lot of engagement before, looking at AJ's resource guide is going to be really helpful for you. It will demonstrate for you how one artist effectively used that community engagement to change and alter the design that he created that eventually lived in that community. Research meetings and mentorship are still a really big part of engagement. So again, those are things that can happen that engage the public in the overall process of an art project, even if they're not directly related to the outcome of that art project itself. Investing back in our local artist community is just as important. So allowing the opportunity for artists to learn from you, to participate in that process, and also to witness how you might do community engagement is an effective way to continue to teach engagement for future generations of artists who might be doing this kind of project.
The public realm is that place that we all inhabit. It is that neutral place that belongs to everybody, and not just belongs to everybody. It defines us. You know, it's a piece of public art is one of the only possibilities where everybody can engage with art, and you don't even know that you're doing that. You know, and that's huge. I think it's super important. Yeah.
And it's something we represent the citizens in the moment, in the time. So it's super important to figure it out where it is there, because it's where will be show us work, us process in life, in society, in happiness, in many different aspects.
I hope that this session has inspired you for why you would want to engage community, for making sure that you reserve some budget to do community engagement in your process, and then giving you some ideas about how you might want to consider engaging the community as you move forward. I look forward to seeing what you come up with. Stay tuned for session 7. In session 7, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of detailed design.